So as I'm going down through, I'm trying to remember, Matt, remind me how I know you. What's your last name, Matt?
Gibson. So I just put my
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I was like, I needed the
you.
last name. Matt, you're new to us. In fact, I'm going to have Matt and his partner share some of the cool things they're doing in a few weeks. But Matt, why don't you introduce yourself? Let's go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Matt Gibson with Senior Benefits Insurance Services. We office just across the hallway from Daryl.
That's right.
We recently went out to lunch to discuss maybe some synergy that we could have back and forth. But we're really a Medicare insurance agency, and we do a lot with employer groups. Not so much a group Medicare, but we're working with employers who say, "Hey, I've got 3 more people retiring this month. They need your help. I don't want to tackle Medicare." Or a group that might say, "We're getting murdered on renewal. What can we do to influence?" And they can't shove them off, but influence people to get off our group plan. So we'll work with them and educate, and that's really what it's about, is educating and helping them. So,
well, and it was fun when we went to lunch. I always thought you were just Utah based, but to learn that you actually work with brokers all over the country was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'd like to, Daryl, I'll jump in just quickly here.
Yeah,
and say,
go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, we use Matt in our groups, his company, and just glad to have him here, and he does a great job.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Steve. SBIS.
Yep, that's us. So Daryl, Trenton Olson.
Oh, Trenton, great.
Yep. So
Awesome. Glad you're with us.
yeah, business partners with Matt. So Matt's told us all the story, but nice to meet you all virtually. And it's been an interesting conversation with Daryl thus far, and we're excited to share some more tools that might help you in the future, as well. As we're pretty we try to think outside the box when it comes to Medicare, which is kind of a boring topic, right? But it's a topic that impacts all of the employer groups, no matter the size. So we built a lot of tools together with Eric Soderborg sitting to my left, your right there, and he's got a great mind, and we're excited to talk about those at some point.
Yep, we will in a few weeks. Sometimes I have amnesia. Brian Garcia. Remind me. Oh, Brian, you're with Nate today. That's exactly where I knew you.
He's with me.
I was about to make something up for you, though.
Terry Kilalia. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no one knows me probably. I work with Scott Haas.
Oh, good. Oh, that's right. He introduced me to you yesterday. Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Right. Scott, I and a gentleman named Eric Davis work as a triad in a sort of independent group within USI Insurance. We're very much part of USI, but we have our own little practice area that we work on, particularly in risk management. Myself, I'm just another PBM guy, which I could say, but I built 2 PBMs from scratch and then jumped over in 2007 to the consulting side. And I'm not going to go on about how, I mean, I just, there's no doubt our solution is very linear and procurement based. And it's just, we're extremely different than anyone else. And I just don't really advertise much. I just take groups on and save a ton of money and move on. And I'll just say that almost everything you hear in terms of thoughts and practices coming from PBM consultants are not generating savings. They just look like they do. I don't care if it's transparency or such. We really go on a line item procurement strategy and then apply clinical strategies. So I'm not advertising. I don't want to advertise. We have a really good group of clients, and we do a lot, and everything we touch. So with Scott doing his network stuff, and then Eric Davis being a reinsurance person extraordinaire, we are very effective. And it intrigued me what you all talking about. I'm a clinician turned finance person, so I'm very intrigued by what you all doing.
Well,
I'm
and
here
I'm
in the
glad you
dark.
joined us today. And Scott's been amazing. He's brought us a number of really great ideas. In fact, the whole cash pay strategy we talked about the last one came from Scott. So looking forward to your thoughts and input when we get to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm here in the darkness of the Northwest with 50 days and 50 nights of rain. So there you go.
No worries. Dustin, it's been a while. Do you want to just bring us up to date with what's going on with you?
I was in here last week, but
Or yeah,
we all know the fourth quarter. I mean, you get into October and I don't know how how any of us survive in this industry, right?
how are you doing?
Hey, life is good. Just doing the best we can, getting through first part of January. But no, happy to be here. Thanks, Daryl.
Awesome. I know Nick's driving, but good to have you with us today. I'm trying to see who else is new. Vince, this is your first time, I believe, right? So Vince, you want to introduce yourself?
There we go. Okay. Yes. Hi, everybody. Vince Silver. First time joining you as a team here. Very interested in what you guys are up to and going to be sitting here like a fly on the wall, absorbing. I've spent a number of years in healthcare and healthcare technology, more recently in the telehealth and digital health side of things. But love what a lot of you guys are doing here.
Thanks, Vince. And Vince is down in Tucson, isn't that right? Arizona?
That's correct.
Awesome. And then Tyler, I'm trying to remember, have we given you a chance? And if I have, I apologize, but reintroduce yourself, Tyler.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Tyler with Lions Pride Insurance. I work down in Spanish Fork. We work a lot with individuals, but we do have a few groups that we've been working with. So trying to learn about all this and hope to work with more groups in the future.
Good. Is there anybody I've missed that's on today for the first time or hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves in the past? Awesome. Okay, well, I wanted to see if anybody else happened to catch. So Lee Lewis, who many of you know over at the Healthcare Transformation Alliance, has started doing a podcast, and he just launched his first one. He just came out a few days ago, and it was pretty cool. Has anybody heard that podcast or knew that Lee was doing a podcast? I'm going to share through the chat, see if I still have it on my, yeah. So this is a link to the video. He interviewed the gentleman who worked with Comcast for many years and is by some people recognized as one of the premier benefit managers in the country, based on the savings he helped Comcast experience over like a 7-year period with a 1% renewal. Anyway, it's an interview where Lee interviews, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Helper. Can't think of his first name all of a sudden. Anyway, great interview, great discussion. Loved his approach. Very aspirational in nature. Very what's best for the customer, and then the opportunities for savings will come second. It's like let's meet the customer's needs. Love that part of the interview. Anyway, so I thought I would share that. I also wanted to mention that we are also starting up some other groups under this aspirational model. So we've had our first aspirational care employers group, which went very well, where we simply brought employers together, told them a little bit about cash pay strategies, but just let them share ideas with each other. Not exactly sure how often we'll hold that. I think maybe there was a couple of you that were actually on that call, but if any of you have employers that you want to introduce this aspirational model to, or you think might be good contributions to sharing great ideas with other employers, feel free to let me know and we'll include them in that invitation. The next one will be on February 3rd. So we're doing those also on a Friday, but at noon. And again, if you've got any groups or clients that you think might benefit from learning from other innovative employers, certainly share that with them. The other thing I wanted to mention, or the one thing I wanted to bring up is we had a discussion at the last meeting about cash pay strategy, and I just wanted to bring up here at the first of the meeting, what were some of your thoughts? As you know, you've heard me say this for a couple months now, about this whole idea of cash pay and the idea of instead of just using contract networks and getting a 30% discount, paying cash pay up front and getting 60, 70, 75% discounts. Some of you are doing that in one way or another. Scott's the one who introduced it to me, but anybody have any thoughts or mentions or questions or comments about our last meeting's discussion around cash pay? Bill, I see you just jumped on. Anything you want to share? Welcome.
I'm assuming it's kind of a Captain Obvious statement. It works 100% of the time better than any other model, from reference-based pricing, from PPO contracts, it doesn't even matter. It's not even close comparatively. If you can get a system to manage it internally inside of an employer, you always will win. I love it. I'm on board. Anytime I can find it, I'm in on behalf of an employer.
Thank you. And what I love is that you're not putting the payer and the provider at odds. You're actually, it's like a win-win for everybody.
Well, we haven't in our quest, we haven't found a single provider that was willing to turn down cash yet. I have not found one. Not a hospital, not a clinic, not a surgical center, not a doctor. Nobody turns down cash.
Right. Other comments or thoughts on this whole cash pay strategy?
Steve
Or
here.
questions?
Ditto,
Go ahead, Steve.
ditto to what Bill said. And I'll mention it again. I mentioned it before. I think it's October 23rd, could be 17th edition of Modern Healthcare, which is the kind of the mouthpiece among hospitals. One of them anyway, is very interesting. It talks about it's basically a conversation among hospital-oriented editors about it's here to stay, it's growing, it's going to be the future, that kind of thing. I was just surprised to see that.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, if you want to share that with the group through the chat, or if you want to just send it to me later, I would love to read that article.
Yeah, we'll do. It's actually and I just said emphasize it. It's a cover story. It's got a picture of a shopping cart with bucks in it, dollars filled with greenbacks.
Nice.
That's the picture of the cover.
October 17th edition.
I'll find
October
it.
17th.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, sounds good. Michael, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, maybe you can quickly wrap this up, because a lot of the times, whether it be RVP or some different style, right outside of a member just handing the provider their health insurance credit card, is maybe highlight a little bit on that conversation, because I wasn't there for it. Sorry that I missed it. About the employer or the members navigating what is, for most of them going to be a very new experience, right?
So the whole idea is you don't put it on the employee. You simply give the employee you can do this in different formats, but imagine giving the employee an insurance card and saying, if you use your insurance card, you pay deductibles and copays. Here's a debit card with a phone number on it. If you simply call that number and get the concierge to be involved in the discussion with your provider, you don't have to do anything. They'll take care of everything for you. But let's say it's a small amount and it's not going to be very much. Maybe it's not just direct primary care would be the initial front layer for primary care. But let's say they need to go see a specialist. Well, okay, give them the debit card and they use that to just pay for it on cash. And then you simply reimburse the debit card. But for really everything and anything beyond that, the employee doesn't have to do anything. They just need to know, call the concierge and let the concierge do all of the upfront negotiations, all of the coordination. Cash is paid on the spot at the time of the test or the time of the procedure, and everybody's happy. It's simple for the employee, it's simple for the provider, and it's simple for the payer, and it costs a lot less. That's a very simple description.
Were they on that call? Did they go over any type of case studies, like how long does it take adoption? What does first year utilization look like, etc.?
let me introduce you to the person who presented. There is a video that I sent out to everybody. Go ahead and watch that if you want. But those questions we didn't really address in the presentation. So I would love for you to connect with Cord Matosic, who's really created one of the, I don't know, amazing processes where you can do cash pay for literally everything in the health plan. It's like, it's not just for a few surgery procedures, but you can literally use their technology to pay cash on everything. And he would be a good one. They've been doing it. Scott introduced them to me, and they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, would love for you to connect with them and ask them specifically those questions. Anybody know the answers to his questions that want to just kind of jump in?
I'll just give them a hint at scale. They're at 30,000 lives, mostly in Texas at this point. So it's not in its infancy. It is up and running.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions or about cash pay, or if anybody has a great idea or something they've learned about in the last month that they want to share, please jump on, and that's how we get these great ideas. Anybody come across some great ideas over the last enrollment period, the last quarter?
Yeah, from a self-funded perspective, just for the advisors on the call, is if you haven't looked into writing, it's a 2-year game plan that I put together. And it was, I'd say, a friend and a peer of mine that actually brought this to my attention. But as far as writing a 12-12 contract, right, which we know subsequently the next year there's going to be a pretty significant increase, right? But at the same front, you're going to see a pretty significant first year's cost reduction. So then the way we've been designing the plan is that you do a 12-12 and then a 24-12. And if you haven't looked at that, it's a good way, and then et cetera, right? So then the next month, the next year would be a 36-12, so on and so forth. So you're capturing those uncaptured claims. And we talk about risk management. So if that's something that you haven't considered, reach out to your TPA and maybe dive a little bit more into that, because that's been a good tool for me as far as basically solidifying, hey, I've got your commitment for 2 years. Ideally, I'd like to have it longer than that, right? But once they buy into the strategy and the idea, that 12-12, 24-12 has been really effective once they understand it, especially moving someone in that self-funded direction. So that's the latest and greatest new thing I've learned.
Anybody have any experience with that or want to add anything to that comment?
I've been doing that for longer than I care to admit. I mean, because everybody's writing 12-15s, you know, and there's inherent risk with that, trying to renew 12-15 back to back. But one other technique, Michael, is when you see that significant premium jump from a 12-12 to a 24-12, that second year in the 24-12, write an aggregating specific. And you can drop your premium significantly and push that premium over to risk.
Nice. We'll have to connect offline, Frank. I'd love to dive into that further.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Great. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts?
Just on the topic of stop loss, they certainly aren't always going to give you the best rates, and there's a lot of good solutions and good carriers out there. But Granular's been showing up as a no new laser rate cap stop loss carrier, which is the two together, not too common. One or the other you can find in their dozens and even hundreds probably at this point, but both together is kind of rare. So if you haven't thought about adding Granular to your shopping process for stop loss, maybe add Granular. They're owned by Alphabet, so they've definitely got the financial rating to be a good company.
Cool. Great suggestions.
You said that was Granular?
Yeah, it's called Granular. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Johnny.
Well, if nobody's got any more, let's jump into today's discussion. So Frank, I'm going to let you start things off by sharing kind of, you know, we've got a client together, Frank and I, and he shared with me a really neat strategy of using kind of a combination for pharmacy. And then found some really cool solutions with stop loss by using this group who's going to talk today, RX Protect. So Frank, if you wouldn't mind kind of going through that story and how you got introduced to Nate.
Sure. So that one of the big opportunities to generate savings for a plan sponsor is to do a specialty drug carve out, right? Everybody kind of knows that. Nate's company, RX Protect, is, and I'll let him correct me here if I misstate something, but he is kind of, RX Protect is one of many companies across the country that provide specialty drugs for members at reduced prices through a variety of means. But the one thing, and the other benefit of specialty drug carve-outs from a stop loss perspective is you can't, by doing that, you can avoid significant premiums, specific premiums, or aggregate factors increase their lasers. And I mean, if you have somebody on Humira, that's, depending on your specific deductible, that's an automatic laser. Skyrizi, $204,000, that's an automatic laser. So the carve out is a good way to eliminate or at least mitigate the stop loss effects on that, not to mention the cost to the plan sponsor and the member. So the problem, and I've used a company historically called RX Help Centers. They're out of Indianapolis. You can check them out. They can get a lot of these drugs at little or no cost for the member, and they don't even come through as a claim whatsoever to the plan. And that's been my, by and large, that's the results and that I've seen. I haven't, been around the free world to see if that's the case in all drugs and stuff, but from what I've seen, it's been very, very positive. The flip side of that is there's a bunch of speed bumps with RX Help Centers that you've got to go through in terms of registration and approval, and one of which is income. So you have for your household income, you've got to fall into that slot of between 400 and 600% of the federal poverty level. If you're in excess of that, they'll try door number 1, number 2, number 3, but there are situations that they just can't assist. The drug manufacturers and the programs they have, if you're making $500,000, you're not going to qualify for one of those programs. So therein lies another problem. So in the event you have a member, and God forbid, it's probably going to be an officer of the corporation, some highly compensated individual that isn't going to qualify, and all of a sudden while the plan can certainly pick up the cost for it, it's not covered by stop loss because you've excluded specialty drugs. Therein lies the problem. And I just with a client that Daryl just mentioned, our mutual client, I have one of those people. So out of the blue, Brian Garcia called me and, trying to really introduce RX Protect to me to use in the future. And I told him what I just described to all of you. And he said, well, we can be the backstop for that. We can pick up those members and their drugs that perhaps RX Help Centers cannot assist with. And I'm like, really? You can do that? And then he introduced me to Nate, and I'll let Nate describe his program. But, by and large, they don't have the income requirements that the RX Help Center programs and assistance has. So once we got to talking about that sounds great, right? Conceptually, but then comes to, okay, how's stop loss going to look at this? Because we've excluded specialty, and they've eliminated lasers and they've reduced premiums and ag factors. The last thing I want them to do is to reverse all that and go back to square one with lasers and increased premiums, because now we're having this opportunity to pick up specialty drugs that RX Help Centers can't provide. So I ran the concept by a couple of stop loss underwriters. They were fine with it, but they said, we need language. And I kind of crafted my language. Nate crafted his language. I kind of put it together and they go, well, I think we need somebody official to write the language. And so just this week, I got somebody official to write the language. And while I sent that to stop loss yesterday to get the carrier on our mutual client to get their approval. And also sent it to the plan sponsor. She thought it was fantastic. And oh, by the way, I included any out of pocket that a member would incur would also go towards their overall deductible and out of pocket. So I'm thinking the formula that, you know, that Nate, RX Protect, Brian, RX Help Centers that I have put together could be a potential game changer with this potential abyss that could exist. Right. Because, you know, because a lot of the company I'm familiar, I haven't been familiar with RX or RX Protect, but I am familiar with Paid Health and some of these others, and they can get the drugs at a reduced cost. And I get it, but RX Help Centers can get it at no cost. So while I'm not opposed to companies like Paid Health or RX Protect and others, I personally, I think this combination could be a win-win for the plan sponsor, the member. RX Protect gets business. You know, the claims are coming in at little or no cost, reduced cost. So that's kind of, did I paint that picture okay, Daryl?
I think you did a great job. Let's turn it over to Nate and just see if he's got anything he wants to correct or just kind of share what they do.
Sure.
Yeah, hey, thanks a lot. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for having us on the call. It's always fun to meet new folks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through great. And we can see your screen.
Good. My office building, my Wi-Fi was under maintenance, like right when this call started. So I had to hop over to a coffee shop and rent out a room. So I think we'll be good, but I'm giving them all dirty looks, like keep it down, you know? But anyway, so yeah, Frank, you know, I appreciate that, you sharing that and that strategy. There's a number of different strategies that work well with our program. You can carve the meds out and we can come in and complement whoever is at the table, right? And kind of pick up the scraps and help with what they can't help with. And we'll walk through this in a minute of how that works. Or for some other meds, even non-specialty meds that maybe you don't carve out, even your insulins of the world, we can help as a cash paying strategy for those as well. So the program in general, and I'm gonna, you know, it's Friday afternoon, so I'm gonna get straight to the point. It's personal importation is what we do. And that's really just the idea of getting medications from outside of the US. The problem that always presents itself with personal importation is a certain stigma, a justified stigma. You know, the idea of getting meds from outside of the US is 50-50. You know, you don't know where the meds are coming from, who's supplying it, how they're taking care of those meds. And so RX Protect, you know, when I started RX Protect, the goal was to create a model that would eliminate that stigma and create a peace of mind for you and your clients, no matter what strategy we're rolling out, whether it's carved out or not carved out of the plan. And so what we did to do that, to provide a peace of mind, to eliminate that stigma, is we said, okay, we want to work with a credible medication distributor and supplier. And so we went to McKesson and struck a deal with McKesson. We said every medication that's dispensed from our pharmacy, we want those medications to come from you and only you. Along with that, we said we want to go dispense our meds out of one country and source our meds from one country. And so we work with McKesson USA and McKesson Canada to supply our pharmacy with the appropriate meds. Then we said, okay, there's a lot of pharmacies in Canada. Let's narrow it down even further and dispense from only one location and house medications from only one location. And that might seem like a no-brainer, but a lot of groups aren't doing it, for one. But two, as a business owner, as somebody who wanted to do things the right way, we wanted to have full control over the supply chain. And so although the medications are coming from Canada, right? We know who the distributor is. So do you, right? McKesson USA / McKesson Canada, just depending on the med and the order. It's being dispensed out of one location in Winnipeg, straight to the doorstep of the member. Now we have a pharmacy B and a pharmacy C in case our number one option gets burnt to the ground or something terrible happens, right? We've got backups. But the idea is to have full control over the supply chain. That in itself is one of the reasons why we've had the success that we've had. And it's been a great experience watching RX Protect grow. Still early in its stage on paper, but our client list is building month by month, and our pipeline is incredible. We work with many school systems, many municipalities. The vertical doesn't matter as much as long as, usually they're self-insured. So if the company saves money, they'll actually enjoy that savings, right? That's somebody that we can help. So this is the operations end on the back end. On the client-facing side, on the member side, through due diligence and just learning about our competitors, we noticed that there's a huge opportunity to provide outreach and customer support in the right way. We're not dealing with sneakers, and we're not shipping out shoes. This is very important. This is the healthcare space. This is medications, usually people on many medications on higher risk on paper. And so we created our proactive outreach and customer support team to be driven by nurses, supported by pharmacists. And so what that means is, if you were to bring us an account, for example, you would have a dedicated nurse for that account. And so if there's a call going out to a member or a call coming in from a member, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that same nurse, because relationships matter. Relationships are key, right? If you're not familiar with personal importation and some of the competitors out there, I'll briefly run through this list. You can look at it and see how we're different. Most groups source medications for 5 to 7 different countries. That is a number of pharmacies. That is a number of suppliers. Too many variables, too many uncontrollables, and just straight up logistical concerns that we're simply not interested in dealing with. There's no control over the supply chain like the model that we've built. Also, most of our competitors outsource their customer support. And if they do outreach, it's provided by non-clinical folks. So that's how we've taken this idea of personal importation, leverage McKesson, leverage Canadian pricing, yet still with full control and peace of mind over supply chain with nurses who really care about people and are creating incredible relationships with the people they help.
And all the drugs are sent to the home, correct, Nate?
Yeah, they're all sent to the home unless there's an on-site or near-site clinic. And if we have a clinic partner who prefers the meds sent there so they can control that care management even further and bring that person back in, we can send it to the clinic. But most of the time it's shipped straight to the shipping address choice of the member. Yep. We're working with brand name medications. Yeah, generics are great. Throw on a generic, stay on a generic. We're looking at the meds that are costing the plan the most money. So if it's carved out, great. We can pick up the scraps or be the number one source to help where we can. If it's a part of the plan, we can still help. We come in as a complimentary service. And so we thrive on specialty. We save thousands of dollars per script per person on specialty meds. No problem. But I'd be remiss in keeping it just that specialty. In fact, I would say 80% of the meds we ship out every month are actually related to type 2 diabetes. The only reason for that is because diabetes is so rampant. And those meds obviously are not carved out of the plan. So we're shipping insulin, we have cold chain shipping, logistics, we're very, very good at that. We're helping folks on Humira, we're helping folks on Trulicity, right? That brand name market is more than just specialty, and those savings add up quickly. The cost advantage we can get from Canada shatters everybody's prices. I'll give you some examples on the next slide, but it provides a 30 to 40% net savings to the employer bottom line. That's after our fees been taken out, 30 to 40% net savings. And in 2022, the average savings we were providing was $6,140 per enrollee per year.
And when you say
So-
enrollee, are you talking about those who use your pharmacy, or
Exactly.
enrollee meaning all eligible employees?
No. Enrollee into our program.
Gotcha.
So, it takes less than 20 folks using this number to get to a six-figure, higher than six-figure savings for a client. Savings add up really quick. And again, but that's the whole point, right? We're targeting and helping the folks that are hurting the plan the most. And in doing so, we say, hey, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, if we're going to save you 30 to 40% to the bottom line, that's a lot of money. We would like to eliminate the copay deductible for the member entirely. So now you have these members who are on, probably 4 to 6 different meds, 2 or 3 of them being brand name, couple insulin or specialty or whatever, whose cost of these meds was a true financial thorn in the side, on a monthly cost for every 90 days. They can now keep that money in their pocket. And it's an incredible benefit that their employer is offering to them. Obviously the employer is saving a lot of money on the back end, but the employee sees it as just a great perk. That's like, oh my God, you're so helpful. The testimonials we get from members for our program are through the roof. They're very, very good. And people love our program and love our nurses too. We do have pharmacists on staff that if there's a consultation needed or a provider would rather speak to a pharmacist instead of a nurse or whatever it may be, we can have those interactions as well. And then lastly on this slide, because of our proactive outreach, because it's nurse driven, and this is a voluntary program, because the meds are coming from Canada, it has to be a voluntary program at a certain level for sure, unless it's carved out, that's a little bit different. But we're averaging a 65 to 70% program enrollment at a voluntary option, which is unheard of. Voluntary programs don't see that type of enrollment rate. Our competitors are averaging a 25, 30% enrollment rate, for example. So our proactive outreach is very, very good. Our customer support is very, very good. And I think that's just as important as anything else in this space. A few examples real quick. You can see the highlighted yellow. I like to compare it to GoodRx and then to just an average plan cost. Even compared to GoodRx, our prices just shatter. I mean, it's not even close. And it's simply because we're taking advantage of Canadian pricing, right? I think we all know prices from Canada are pretty good, but you can get a glimpse here as to how good they really are. Trulicity for pens, $438 through RX Protect, whereas the average plan pays just over $1,000. Stelara is an unbelievable price. We say thousands of dollars per script per person on Stelara. And again, those add up quick, very, very quick. Employers love it, and we get to work with great folks as well. I did mention this was complimentary. And what I mean by that is we can launch, we're not going through the plan. This is a cash paying option. We can submit claims to TPAs. We can submit claims to stop loss. We can submit claims to whoever needs it. And we have those automated fees set up. That's no problem. But the reality of the situation is, this claim, this medication cost is not being adjudicated through the claim. We're pulling from the same account, usually from that the healthcare expenses are being paid for, but we're acting as a true complementary service, a voluntary option for these employees. And we only share in the savings. That's it. There's no startup fee, no other monthly fee. We only make money when somebody enrolls into our program and we share in that savings. So there is no true financial risk to your clients. If nobody signs up, they're not going to lose $1. If 20 people sign up, they're going to save over $100,000, right? So that's how we built this model. There's a lot of skin in the game for us to go about doing things the right way and helping as many people as we can while ensuring that, our process is top notch. So last slide for what I call the first strategy, this approach through Canada. If as we were speaking and as I was kind of going through this, a client came to mind. We provide a free RX claims analysis, just showing what went through the plan over the past however many months of data you send to us and what could have been. So we'll actually go through the real data for a client, find the medications we can help with, align our cost right next to it, and then show the net savings at the bottom. And if the savings make sense, you're going to know quickly, and you can present that to the client to see if they're interested in running our program. But usually, as you know, using a client's data to sell whatever you're trying to do makes things a whole lot easier. And there's always a good story to be told when it comes to this type of cost savings. So I'm going to take a quick break, open it up to questions. I've got another very brief 2-slide second strategy I'd like to present to you as well, that we have some employers moving forward with. It's a brand new thing for us, but I don't want to muddy the waters. So Daryl, do you want to open it up for?
Yeah, I have a question that maybe others have, and I think I like your strategy. What is your average shared savings cost? Did you tell me it's like between 20 and 30% of the savings? Is what you charge?
Yeah, usually it's 33%, unless we have a very large partner at the table, or it's negotiable. But for example, I don't know if anyone on this call has heard of the PBM True Scripts out of Indiana, which is actually where I'm calling from today. True Scripts and RX Protect. RX Protect is totally integrated into the True Scripts PBM process. So new clients moving forward, RX Protect is just going to be a piece of what True Scripts does, meaning True Scripts runs the exact same process that, Frank, you mentioned RX Help Center. True Scripts does that already. The strategy one, patient assistance manufacturer, yeah. And so they vet that option. Well, any med they can't help with, exactly what Frank was talking about, same kind of approach. That med then goes to RX Protect on the specialty side. The non-specialty, we're running our traditional process across the board because those savings are just, it's a layup. I mean, it's a slam dunk, essentially. It's not a layup. But yeah, so it ranges, but we're open to discussion. We want a true partnership with the right people. So whatever works best for you and the client.
So who else has questions?
I have some questions.
Yes,
Group size minimum.
We have clients from 50 employees to 3,000 at this point.
Okay.
Do you have a minimum? Do you require a certain number?
We don't. As long as the client will actually realize the savings, that they need to be self-insured or some type of insurance where the savings actually matter. The process is the exact same. So if say there's 50 employees, we'll probably help 2 or 3 of them. And that's worth it to us because we started RX Protect to help people. Process is the exact same on our end. We help that member, we receive the script. So it doesn't matter to us.
Nice. Good question.
Great. And so you answered actually my second question, which was, and it was assumed to be this way, but it's just self-funding only. And really, there's not going to be any synergies to bolt this on top of a fully insured product, which was assumed again, but just trying to ask it to be obvious. J codes and infusion style drugs. Have you dabbled in that space?
We have. Most of those are not even available through McKesson Canada. So our relationship with McKesson is pretty strict or restricted to the only medications available out of Canada. And believe it or not, if you're a patient in Canada, a lot of that stuff is not even available as an option. So having said that, what we do is look at the patient assistance manufacturing programs to hopefully get support and get those for free through some of the same ideas that Frank had mentioned that RX Help Centers But here's,
I have a,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. I just have another question. I have a question.
Go ahead, Bill.
We have some clients with a product that's a bit of an oddity in as ERISA plans go, and that's Redirect Healthcare. Redirect Healthcare is pretty territorial about its data, even though it's an ERISA plan that they sell. And we've got a couple of pretty good size employers that are on that plan that we're probably not going to be able to get that data because they know why we're asking for it, as they're kind of controlling their own space, right? So we're not going to really get any comparative. What do we do when we've got a couple of hundred lives and we actually don't know what that specialty pharmaceutical looks like? How do we handle that?
So the easiest way really is just to do a law of averages. And, we have a little over 40 clients at this point, with about 10 more launching in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and a pipeline that's about 10 times, what we currently have. So we kind of know what the pain points are for each employer. Although we can provide, over 125 brand name meds, I would say across the board, about 80% of the meds that we actually create a list for as pain points are the same across every employer. So we could just open it up and say, hey, look, for these 20 meds, we could put the 20 most common meds on and just see if we can have some success there. Maybe we tweak it along the way. We can assume that Trulicity, Ozempic, Jardiance, those types of meds will definitely be on that list.
And Nate, and I think where Bill's going is, it would be nice to share with the employer what kind of savings, but an employer can bring this into a self-funded plan, even if there is no comparative data. If all they say is, we just want to bolt you on and use you as a part of the strategy, we don't know what kind of savings we're going to experience, but there's no reason why you have to have the comparative data, right?
Correct. If we have the data, obviously that's easiest, because then we can actually do proactive outreach to the people we know are on those meds.
Gotcha.
And we can talk about that in a different time of how we professionally do that, so that person does not feel singled out. But if we don't have the data, then we would just open in the messaging, which I can share some examples as well, through email or a different call, whatever makes sense for y'all. But it actually has the list of medications specific to that group that we'd be targeting. And we would just create a common list, assuming that based on everyone else, those certain meds would probably be the best targets.
Good. Any other questions? Nicholas, Terry?
Yeah, I think I'll bring up the very large elephant in the room. Again, I've been in this industry 37 years and run everything imaginable from a PBM side, everything. I've been involved in assessing importation strategies since the late 90s. I may be wrong, but correct me if so. It is currently a federal violation to import drugs. May not be enforced, but it is a violation of federal law. And every importer I've dealt with has said, oh, it's not being enforced and everybody else does it, but that doesn't change. And again, we've run this by very senior counsel, and their opinion is similar as what I'm stating. So again, that's not challenging it. Just want to see what you respond to that statement, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, as you know, there's language and bills passed by Congress that have deemed it permissible and have allowed people to receive medications from outside the US for specific reasons. And the relationship has to be created in a certain way between the patient and the pharmacy. Has to be voluntary. There's kind of a 4 or 5 list of contingents that we have to meet. That's how we built our program. I think a piece of that is also working a lot with McKesson USA. So, it goes in our mind, it goes back to the peace of mind that we created in knowing that, we're not getting meds from like Turkey, India.
Yeah. And again, I'm certainly not a place to debate. I'm just going to say from the conservative standpoint, I am aware of the legislation that was passed. Not much of it is enacted.
Yeah.
Again, in managing thousands of clients over the years, this is not something we've touched, because every informed counsel that we've worked with, informed meaning folks not trying to steer it one way or the other, really taking it from a prima facie basis, has said, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to blow up your machine. I'm just
No,
saying.
it's cool.
Yeah.
I get it. I think, the market, the tone of the environment of the market is largely in everyone's favor. So the past 4 administrations have all spoke about, opening the border and,
Right.
having this transparency. So as each administration and time moves on, it's more in our favor than against it.
I agree. And again, I'm all for it. I just.
Yeah, no. And I get it. I'm just sharing where I'm coming from. Dr. Jerome Adams was Trump's general surgeon, chief doctor of the land. He actually lives here in Fishers, Indiana. And he's looked at me point blank and said, every self-insured employer should be doing this.
Well,
and he's helping us push this along. The reason, you got to keep in mind, it's not, that argument, and I get it. Trust me, I go to school board meetings and meet with municipality legal teams, and we've won all those. There's never been a time where somebody brought it up and they actually stuck with it. And I think it goes to this kind of argument where it's just like, it's $1 trillion industry, the healthcare system here in the US. I just read a letter today that the 3 top PBMs made more money on meds than they did on their insurance costs, from 2022. So to make a real change and just totally allow it, one, Canada does not want that because they wouldn't be able to keep up with our supply. But 2, somebody would probably get a bullet in the head for disrupting $1 trillion industry and putting everyone essentially out of business. So this is a capitalism thing instead of a reasonable logic sort of thing. And I think that's why, this over the 6 million people who receive meds from outside of the US every single year, let's say those are all 90-day supplies, right? And many of them are probably 30-day supplies as far as shipments go. 6 million times 4 shipments a year is 24 million shipments not being stopped at the border. So there's a whole space for it.
Yeah. And again, the concept is fine. I have no question about the validity and quality of the medications. Now, heck no. It's just it's the black and white interpretation of federal law that has always concerned me. So it's just there's different ways to look at it.
And
in alignment with Terry, I'm curious, maybe Nate, you could share on that, or Terry, it sounds like you have a wealth of knowledge on this also. What are the risks, right? Let's say someone that you implement that, what would be the risk or the potential penalty that, an employer would be facing based off of, what you shared, Terry? I'm curious to
I don't know the exact penalties. It is, but again, I don't really want to get into debate of it. I think if someone was going to do it, get their own counsel. It is a federal statute that bans importation of drug use. If you go, mind you, I believe sending someone over to France or Costa Rica to get their Enbrel prescribed by a provider and then securing it, that's a different story. But to have it directly imported, I could be very wrong.
I have a question. So one of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was that the federal government has been very clear through the Department of Health and Human Services that individuals have the right to choose how they're going to pay for things. And that by using this voluntary cash pay strategy, does the protection that I have a choice as to whether my insurance company knows about my purchasing this surgery or purchasing this drug, does that play into my protection, Nate?
That is part of what deems it permissible and what Congress has deemed it permissible. Along with that, and I can't speak to our competitors, but we are largely working with McKesson USA, along with McKesson Canada. But many of the times when it's McKesson USA, it's re-importation, not personal importation. So it actually goes from USA to the pharmacy in Canada back to the USA. So we're trying to do things in the right way that's totally different, only working with meds that McKesson is deemed as FDA approved as well. So,
Well,
yeah.
one comment that we've had success is we've been working with True North up in Canada. And one of the, again, talking about the legality of everything, is that there's actually a prescribing physician in Canada who is actually prescribing that medication, right? So it's not just like being prescribed and being shipped in. It's technically a Canadian physician writing that script. So that has seemed to satisfy a lot of people's.
Yeah, I think that's a lot safer, honestly.
Yep. Yep. And that's what we've done with True North quite a bit with some of our clients. It's been very, very successful. I mean, we're talking about Tremfya. We had a client that was paying about $130,000 a year on Tremfya. The client didn't qualify for the PAP program because they made too much money. So we did, kind of that next step of True North international sourcing. We're now paying $35,000 to $40,000 for that one drug. So we saved our client $90,000 on that one prescription. It's the exact same prescription. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. And I love True North. I actually know Don and Amir really well. And so, yeah, we loved what they put together, follow the same process. And then to answer your question, Michael, about what's the risk, I did have my legal team look into it. And essentially the risk is, if it were to ever be enforced, so one, and I'm not trying to dismiss this enforcement, but they would have to put a stop to over 6 million people doing it, for the right reasons, including True North and all these programs that are helping people. But if that was to ever happen, essentially my legal teams found that we would get a cease and desist letter asking us to stop. And there's a force majeure clause in our contract that allows us to stop the program immediately for that reason. So if that were to ever happen, we would just stop doing it.
Yeah, very, very reasonable. Very reasonable.
And that's the risk.
Yeah.
Now, if we denied that and kept doing it, that would be a problem. But
clearly, I don't foresee the Fed side getting serious about it. Serious meaning, I just read through the FDA stuff. I mean, it's very, very black and white as far as I'm concerned about what's allowed and not. But unquestionably, the government has not been in the business of enforcing it. There's no question. You're right. And it's just an aspect that needs to be considered. I mean, it is a clearly effective way to lower cost. I mean, there's no question. You can't argue with it.
Well, Terry, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm actually very glad that you brought it up so that it's very clear to all of us kind of the situation that this is.
Yes,
I find it amazing. I mean, again, I've been on the outside. I have not engaged this strategy. I've been very successful in doing what I'm doing. But I'm also never rendered a black or white opinion. I know a lot of good vendors, these guys included, and they're wonderful people and know what they're doing. It's just that one very, very linear black and white question that I've never been comfortable being on the wrong side of, if you will.
Yeah. Nate, I know we're out of time, so some people may need to jump off, but if you wouldn't mind going into your second strategy real quickly so we can get that on the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate it. 2 slides, and then you can do the research on your own because it's an actual website you can go to. So, the strategy 1 that we just talked about helps everyone on those brand new medications that would be deemed as targets for our program. But as we know, there's thousands of other meds that are generics and whatnot that we probably wouldn't target because of cost, but there's still significant opportunity to save money. So we partnered with Capital RX, and with our partner RX Spark, created a platform that is comparable to GoodRx. It works very much in the same way. You can visit this website and kind of research it on your own, see what the prices are in your area. But we take less of a cut on the back end. We leverage some amazing contracts. Because of that, 8 out of 10 prices are actually cheaper on this platform and is accepted in all area pharmacies. Now, the angle with this, obviously, if a patient or an employee, I was talking to a hospital system earlier, if an employee uses this platform, that's great. They're familiar with it. It's GoodRx, kind of the same old. However, I have a few school systems that have approached me with this platform, and they said, we want to reimburse these employees if they use your platform as well, to use that as an incentive so they get them to actually use it. You know, we know that you can have a great idea, but if no one uses it, it's not that great of an idea, right? So what's the incentive? Well, even for generics, the school system said, we want to use both of your platforms, the traditional, that's a no-brainer. And then anyone who goes to this platform, this is all USA based, you know, no other, you know, it's just like GoodRx, way more options than our Cuban program. But the idea is Capital RX, that, you know, the PBM we're working with on this would actually, they send us data every month showing every piece of detail that we would need to know in regard to a transaction on our platform. We would filter that and send it to the employer that's interested in seeing that. And then they can reimburse their employees as they would reimburse like any expense or however they want to pay that out. But the idea is to take what GoodRx is doing, incentivize employees to use it. And that's exactly what you have here with our platform. So this is brand new to us. There's an app in the App Store that we're still putting together that should be available, you know, by probably February 1st, no later than March 1st. But just makes it very, very simple. So I just wanted to throw this second strategy out because I think it's pretty cool. We're obviously pretty proud of it. But I know you all are forward-thinking group, pretty innovative. So you might even have ideas for this that, you know, we haven't thought of, but just wanted to make you aware of it.
Great. If you've got a few minutes, I don't know if you need to run to your son's ball game, but anybody have any questions for Nate before we jump off? I know we're after the hour. If not, thank you everyone for jumping on today, and appreciate it. Nate, thanks for you and Brian being a part of the group, and thanks Terry for bringing up your question, and we will see you at the next meeting, which is going to be the 27th, and Kristen Dickerson is going to talk about their imaging network of centers across the country. So with that, we'll say goodbye, and again, thanks everybody.
Very good.
Thank you all.
Guys, see
Thanks.
you. Have a
Thank
good
you for
weekend.
organizing, Daryl.
You
Thanks,
bet.
everybody.
Thank you.